All right, are you guys getting sick of mock drafts yet? This early in the season, we're doing all these mock drafts. Are you sick of them yet? I'm not sick. I have too much fun doing this. After I did the video on the salary cap, on the free agency, on the roster spots, where we can cut, where we can trim a little bit to improve the salary cap, I want to do a complete mock off season for the Bears. I'm not going to get too deep in the coaches. I'm just going to pretend like Thomas Brown absolutely kills it for us the rest of the season. We're going to take the draft spots where we stand right now because that's where we are. But we're going to say Thomas Brown did great. He's going to be our head coach next year. If you love someone else, just insert that person into it because I'm just basically going off the roster. And then whoever the coach is can coach these guys up the way they need to. Here is the salary cap from the video I did the other day. We're sitting roughly $86-ish million. Let's jump in and start making some transactions. If you haven't watched the other videos, I explained the breakdown of why I'm cutting certain guys, which guys are coming up on their contracts, which ones are valuable to cut or to sign or to re-sign. Ryan Bates is one that I'm definitely cutting. Best ability is availability, and he hasn't been available for the Bears. In fact, his whole career. He's got a lingering shoulder issue. This is one to me that you absolutely cut him and save the $4 million. No cap hit whatsoever. Just cut bait, move on, and go from there. Next one, Gerald Everett. I had high hopes for Gerald Everett. Right now, he's the 68th out of 70th ranked tight end. We'd save $5.5 million by cutting him. That's basically enough to sign another really good tight end. He got paid good money, another good backup. So we're going to go ahead and cut him. We're going to save the money from Gerald Everett as well. All right, so this is where the Bears stand after that on the salary cap. You got your $87,167 from the rollover cap. You got $5.5 million from Gerald Everett, $4 million from Ryan Bates. We were sitting at $96,667,000. Now, we're going to quickly roll through roster decisions here because I don't want to spend a bunch of time on one spot. I'm going to do the whole mock-off season. Coleman Shelton, free agent. We're going to re-sign him. Maybe 2 years, $5 million. It doesn't matter the amount. It's going to be right around a $5 million value. We're going to sign Coleman Shelton. His cohesion with Caleb Williams, he's a top 10 center in the league this year. We're going to bolster it up with some guards next to him. We're going to get Bill Murray because he is an earnings restricted free agent. That means he's in his low career. He's going to get a league minimum 10.03. And we're going to re-sign Matt Pryor, who's played so well this year. He's going to get a little pay raise, and he would be worth $3.5 million. So we're going to re-sign those three guys from the offensive line. And next we're going to go straight to, that's what it does now. Let's go straight to the running backs. There's nothing to do here. We're not going to re-sign Travis Homer. So that's the only thing here. We're just not going to re-sign Travis Homer. Let's cruise right along. We go to our receivers, tight ends. Now, some of these guys you can see in the green. I'm going to want to keep them for the practice squad. But other than that, we're going to re-sign Keenan Allen. I think some people are starting to come around to the idea of this. $15 million. Spotrac says he's going to be worth $16, $17 million. I think he takes a little discount to stay here. Coaches, Chris Beatty, Thomas Brown, all praise him. He's basically a coach, is what they said. So I think he wants to stay. He said he wants to stay. DJ wants him to stay. Anyways, we're going to keep these guys in the green. Simba Webster, Colin Johnson, Stephen Carlson, Tommy Sweeney. We're going to keep them on the practice squad. We're going to let Mercedes Lewis and Gerald Everett go, as we already went over Gerald Everett. DeAndre Carter, after his snafus on the returns, we're not going to re-sign him. He kind of blew his opportunity the last two games, blowing the return duties twice in a row. So the only one we're going to re-sign here is Keenan Allen. That's where we move from there. Let's go over to the defensive side of the ball. We got these guys in green here. Deshaun Mallory, Jamari Croma, Daniel Hardy. We're going to get them on the practice squad. Now, I just put this here because one or the other. We're going to keep one or the other. I want to see the rest of the season them play Jake Martin, Dominic Robinson. Play both of them a lot and see what they can do. Both of them seem to be doing very well in limited snaps. So I'd like to see what they're going to do, but we're just going to keep one of them. Dominic Robinson's on his rookie contract, so we're just going to leave him in here for now. We'd have to cut him to keep Jake Martin. And then we're going to let Chris Williams and Byron Cowart go. Both have been absolutely just low-tier backups. You don't need low-tier backups when we're trying to compete for playoffs, so we don't need low-tier backup guys. We need to bolster this defensive line, edge, defensive tackle, and other defensive tackle. We need to bolster them this offseason for sure. All right, a little bit of action here on the linebackers, nickelbacks. We're going to match both Josh Blackwell and Jack Sanborn, whatever they get offered. We're going to match that. Jack Sanborn probably get $3-year, $15 million. Josh Blackwell, a year or two at a little over league minimum. I would expect someone would offer him. So we're going to match that as well. We're going to let Darrell Taylor and Amen Ogbongbemia, we're going to let both of them go and move forward without him. And Micah Baskerville, Carl Jones, Reddy Stewart, we're going to let them all go to the practice squad as well. All right, and then last, our cornerbacks and safeties. We are going to, I can see them matching Douglas Coleman's, but we're going to let him go to the practice squad even if we match it. Jalen Jones, we're going to match there. Whatever he gets offered, we're going to match him there. And then we're going to let JT Woods, Tavarius Moore, and Amir Speed go. Other than that, I mean, the rest of the roster is pretty much set for cornerbacks and safeties right now. We're going to have to do something in the next couple of years because all these guys are coming at the end of their 2025 contracts. So there's decisions to be made, but not as far as where we stand now. All right, so this is where the salary cap would look like in this scenario. We're going to cut Gerald Everett. We're going to cut Ryan Bates. We're at 96.6. Offensive line is going to cost this much, $9.53 million. Wide receivers, which is only Keenan Allen, $15 million. Linebackers and cornerbacks going to cost about $8 million. We're down to 64,137. We're going to have to set and reserve draft picks and practice squad. They're going to cost roughly $15 million in the salary cap. And then our buffer cap that Ryan Poles likes to roll into for injuries, for additional signings, or something we might have mid-season will be about $10 million. So we have roughly $39,137,000 to spend in free agency. That's what we're going to use for this video in free agency. We're not going to quite use all that, so we can have some more buffer cap, which is what Ryan Poles did this last year as well. But we got about $40 million we can spend. And we're going big. We're going big right off the bat. Why not go for Trey Smith? I know a lot of people say that the Chiefs are already working negotiations to try to get him back. So over here on the right, this whole section over here, this is the top guards in the league. You can see Trey Smith is tied right there at 9. These are the biggest contracts from this last cycle. Landon Dickerson, I know this is hard to see. He's the highest paid one, average salary $21 million. Chris Lindstrom right on this, Quentin Nelson, Robert Hunt. These guys are all in the $20 million range. They're the highest paid guards. And you see their names. Chris Lindstrom, number 1 on the list. Quentin Nelson, number 8 on the list. Landon Dickerson tied with Trey Smith, number 9 on the list. Tevin Jenkins right there at 14, but he's so injured, I don't want to re-sign him. So we're letting him walk. We're letting Tevin Jenkins walk, and we're going to replace him, actually the other side, with Trey Smith. 5 years, $107.5 million. So $5 million higher than the other biggest contract ever signed, which is Chris Lindstrom at $102.5 million. $20.5 million average salary. So we're going to increase it by $1 million. We're going to bring that new ceiling to a top. And that's how you lure him away from Kansas City, is you break the salary cap for him. We could even go higher, 22 and a half. We could do that. Very worth it. Hasn't allowed a single sack this year. He only allows a pressure once every 20-ish plays or so. So a couple of games is it. And even at that, he's not allowing the sacks this last year. So I really like Trey Smith. I think everybody else knows about Trey Smith. Spotrac has him at 18.6 just because they're kind of gauging off other contracts. But this is realistically what you're going to have to pay to get Trey Smith. He's only 25 years old. So he's worth it to pay the $5 million contract. He's a proven, I mean, look at this, year after year. He's consistent run blocking, which the Bears need to get back to the run game. Solid pass blocker, and overall grade, one of the highest in the entire league. So number 1, we're going to go after Trey Smith with our first move in free agency. All right, number 2, we got rid of Gerald Everett, and we're going to replace him with another very similar tight end. We got Cole Kmet for the hands. Mo Cox isn't terrible with his hands. He's got 1 touchdown this year, 4. But he's always been known as a good pass blocking and run blocking tight end. So we're going to replace basically Big Dog. Big Dog is gone. Mercedes Lewis needs to retire. He needs to be gone. Mo Cox will get right around in this range. He might get a little bit more than that, but he is getting older. He's 32 years old this next year. So I think this is a great signing. I brought him up last year. I like Mo Cox, especially for his ability to just get the job done. He re-signed after 2021 with the Colts, and he didn't have the best couple years. And then this year, he's had a little bit of a resurgence contract year. So we're going to sign him just a 2-year deal with his age. 2 years, $9 million is what we're going to do. $4.5 million annual value. All right, I've brought up Bobby Brown before. We're going to have to overpay him a little bit. He's a young tackle. He's at the end of his rookie contract. You're going to have to pay him about $6 million, $7 million a year to have him as a backup defensive tackle. That's what he's going to cost, but he's worth it. He's one of the highest graded tackling as well as defensive backup tackles in the league. So he's a free agent this year. He's young as well. He's only 25-ish years old. Came into the league in 2021. So Bobby Brown's the next one. We're going to pay $6 million a year for him on a 3-year deal. And then last, I know everyone doesn't love the idea of the injuries, but this is the type of injury you take a flyer on. Trent Brown has been a staple in the league. He's consistent. He's getting older. And he had in the 3rd or 4th game of this season for Cincinnati, his new contract, he went out with a torn patellar tendon. He's out for the season. He said he doesn't want to retire. Big boy. Look at this. 6'8", 370 pounds. He's 32 years old this next year. He had a $4.5 million contract with $4.397 million with the Bengals. We're going to bring him in at right tackle to be able to back up, and we're going to pay him $4 million a year, and that's going to be worth it for him to be able to come back and to be able to have a rehab prove-it year. Maybe he can find a starting gig somewhere. I'm not sure if he could or not. So we're going to give him the backup role behind Darnell Wright. He's got experience too. He can help Darnell Wright with his technique. I love everything about this. I know some people say, well, we don't want this because of the injury. But you've got a deep line that we're building here, and this helps it completely to have a vet presence on the team. So I actually really like the idea of Trent Brown being signed to a lower contract. All right, so after that, this is where we stand. We need starters at defensive tackle, left guard, defensive end. In between, kick returner, punt returner for sure, left tackle, nickel back for the future, running back for depth, a center for the depth for the future. And then minimal needs, we'll have to address these things in the near future because, as I showed, the cornerbacks and safety were coming to the end of their contracts in 25, as well as Shaquan Brisker with his injury history. So here's kind of where our draft picks stand. And in this scenario, I'm going to say Ian Cunningham gets pulled away. We get 2 third-round picks, one this year and one next year for the Rooney Rule. That's how it would work. We get one in 2025, one in 2026. So I am going to use that in this scenario. And I'm also going to trade down because I think where our value picks need, all three of these, defensive tackle, left guard, defensive end, the biggest value for them is near the end of the first round, into the second round, and third round. So I'm going to trade out of 11 with a team like the Texans who want to come up, and we're going to get an extra pick out of that for the second round as well to really hit these needs. So this is just from Fantasy Football Pro Football Focus. You can see where we stand now. This is the current standings. This is the current draft order. There's our draft picks in this scenario. And here's the trade I conjured up. So we're going to trade away. It's actually 11. I put 10 because that's where we were before. But 11 for 122, 254, 123, and a future third-round pick. Now, this values the Bears, but the Texans are coming up. So they want to come up, so they're forcing our hands, so they're giving us extra pick in next year's draft. It's actually not that far out of range for the trade value chart. So this is actually pretty fair. 122 for 111, and we get a second, a fourth, and a future third as well to put in our pocket. Okay, and this video isn't going to be about highlighting the players as much as filling out the roster. So I'm not trying to show you a bunch of new names in this one. I'm just taking a lot of the guys that I like. So we're going to roll through it pretty quick. I'm not going to do any additional trade downs or anything like that. We did our one trade down. Now I'm just going to fill the roster. At the first round pick, we're going to take Walter Nolan, defensive tackle out of Mississippi. Second round, 37, we're going to take his teammate, Princely Umanmielen, defensive end. And one thing to highlight on him, guys, it's not being shown enough. Not only his run defense, but his pressure he's getting this year is absolutely phenomenal. I really like Princely Umanmielen more I see him, and he's big. He's a big boy, 6'4", 255, and he's quick. He's got a good vertical, too. He's going to be a freak on the freaks list. All right, our next pick. Oh, man, I'm right over his face. Get out of here. Wyatt Millam from West Virginia. He'll be able to come in and compete with Kiran Amagaji, be able to see if one of them can take over for Braxton Jones next year or if Braxton Jones really earns his spot this year. One thing I really like about him is 0 sacks in the last 3 years. He's been a staple for them, and he's an absolute beast. He's one of the best offensive linemen we can pick up in this draft. He could even shift into guard if we need him to, but I don't like that. I like him staying out there at tackle and competing against Karan and competing against Braxton as well. All right, 254. I'll move me back over here. Those who have been watching this channel know that I like Tate Ratledge, so we're going to take Tate Ratledge, guard out of Georgia. He would be the day one starter. I think he's got good anchor, really, really solid against the pass rush, and a really strong run blocking guard. So we're shoring up the offensive and defensive line here. We've taken 2 defensive linemen. We've taken 2 offensive linemen to start this off. All right, now we're taking best player available because we picked up some extra draft picks. We have a luxury here of picking a couple extra picks. And I really like the idea of bringing someone in to compete against Tremaine Edmonds, shoring up the linebacker room before we have an issue next year if Tremaine doesn't work out. So I'm taking Chris Paul Jr. here in this third round, 76th overall. Some people might say that's an overdraft. This is where you're going to start seeing some of the best linebackers go in the draft, though. And if you look at this last year down there, since he transferred from Arkansas, he's having an absolutely stellar year for Ole Miss. So I'm going to take him in third round, 73rd pick. And then with our pick we get for Ian Cunningham, the Rooney Rule, we're going to take Cam Skattebo. And I did this 100% because of how his game was today. If you guys saw in the previous video, though, I did on Ashton Genty, I had Cam Scattaboo circled, didn't talk too much about him. He wasn't on anybody's draft boards because he transferred from Sacramento State to Arizona State, had a decent year last year, but he's absolutely killing it this year. In fact, he's the third highest ranked. This down here is the offensive rank for all running backs. Ashton Genty's number 1, Rashad Smith number 2, Cam Scattaboo number 3, Dylan Sampson number 4, who I really like a lot. I've highlighted him. You go down there, Caleb Johnson, I like him a lot. Jordan James, I like him. Devin Neal, RJ Henry. So I'm going to take Cam Scattaboo. He is going to rise boards. He's showing off right now. He's going to be in the college football playoff. He's a good center of balance. He doesn't get knocked off easily. He plows through guys. If you didn't see in that game, he was a monster. So we're going to take Cam Scattaboo as a workhorse running back. We're going to shore up our running back room with him. I actually really like this pick a lot. All right, as we move to the 4th round, I got to make myself a little bit littler. I've taken Jared Wilson in later rounds in other drafts, but I think he's a 4th rounder. I think that's where he's going to go, so I'm going to take Jared Wilson. I like his size and his speed. Some of the other ones that a lot of people are talking about, Alabama center, some of the other ones I've highlighted aren't quite as big and nimble. I really like Jared Wilson and his prospect of developing. He had a really good year this year. It hasn't allowed any sacks. So I like him a lot. We're going to take Jared Wilson, have him back up behind Coleman Shelton, and be able to compete with him, and maybe we can develop him into a really great center in the league. All right, as we get in the 5th round, we're going to take Ricky White, who's had 2 consecutive 1,000-yard receiving seasons for UNLV. This last year, he just barely broke 1,000, but 11 touchdowns, 8 touchdowns, really good offensive grades both years, but more importantly, helped shore up our special teams as well. His special team grade of 92 was 4th highest in the entire nation this year. He had 4 blocked punts alone. 4 blocked punts by him. 6'1", 190. He's quick. He's an ex-receiver. Really good to learn under Keenan. I like the idea of bringing him in and having him help out special teams as well. All right, then we're addressing the need and concern with Jaquan Brisker. We're shoring up the safety room, bringing one in this year. We're going to bring in Latham Ransom. I talked a little about him in previous videos. Really solid. And then we're going to shore up the linebacker room a little bit more with our 7th-round picks. These 7th-round picks are developmental picks where you try to find value. Jackson Woodard was the Mountain West Conference Defensive Player of the Year. I've got him covered up with me. Mountain West Conference Defensive Player of the Year. His run defense and his overall defensive grade is top 25 in the entire college football. So he's top in both of those. He's a hitter. 83 tackles this last year. He absolutely pummels guys, so it'd be fun to see him develop as well. And then don't shoot the messenger. One more time, I'm taking Jacob DeJesus solely because he was a 2nd-team All-American in punt returns in 2024, 83 return grade. Hardly ever drops the ball. I mean, in cold weather, in everything, he at least can fair catch. He can do everything with the ball, and he's got absolute wheels on him. So we're taking Jacob DeJesus to shore up our return ability as well. Okay, then let's roll through this roster because, guys, tell me this would not excite the crap out of you. Braxton Jones with Wyatt Millen competing with him. Kieran Amagaji still developmental as well. Seeing what we can do there. Bill Murray behind Tate Ratledge, Matt Pryor, Trey Smith. Matt Pryor can obviously fill in anytime someone gets injured. Bill Murray was really good before he got injured as well. That's really solid to have this much depth. Darnell Wright still starting, but Trent Bound there as a vet to be able to back him up. Trey Smith, huge upgrade for this team. That starting front is pretty solid to me. Darnell Wright, Trey Smith, Coleman Shelton, Tate Ratledge, Braxton Jones. Maybe some of you don't love Braxton. In that case, I drafted Wyatt Millen, which is one of the highest graded, and in my opinion, one of the very highest graded offensive tackles in this class. So right off the bat, the offensive line to me looks significantly better. Then we move over to the running backs and quarterbacks. Nothing really changes here except we actually have a pound the ball workhorse running back in Cam Scattaboo. So him and DeAndre Swift could very much give us a David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs type of look. I would be really excited to watch that on the field, 100%. All right, wide receivers, we got DJ Moore, Keenan Allen's back, Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, Tyler Scott. Then you've added Ricky White, Jacob DeJesus, and Mo Alley Cox. I'm good with this. I mean, those top 4 alone, Cole Kmet, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, and DJ Moore are enough. But now we have depth there as well. And we shore up our special teams. Never going to drop the ball again. This is what excites me the most, though. Defensive end, defensive tackle. And then the contracts are over here for those who are interested if you weren't looking on the other screens. Montez Sweat, Jervon Dexter, Wallen Nolan, Princey Uman Mielen. I really like that. But then we've shorted up with better depth as well with Bobby Brown III. I like this a lot. And then we still develop Austin Booker. I'm not sold on either Dominic Robinson or Zach Pickens, but they're way down the chart, and our front 8 there is very solid in my opinion. I think they're going to be stopping the run significantly better and getting more pressure on quarterbacks as well. And we move over to the linebackers, nickelbacks. Jermaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, Jack Sanborn, nothing changes there. Kyler Gordon, nothing changes, but our depth there is significantly better as well. And in fact, I think Chris Paul could come in and compete. He's going to have to develop as a linebacker, but he can come in and compete. He's got long, lengthy arms, and he does a really good job in college of noticing when the run is happening quick. He can scheme. He can see quicker than most how a play is developing, and he has really good coverage grade, which is something these guys have been struggling with this year. He's long and lengthy. He can get out there in coverage if he sees the play developing into coverage, and he can come up and hit the run. His average depth of target is really solid in college. So Chris Paul Jr. is one that I'm getting really excited watching. I'd love if we could pick him up. Then our cornerbacks and safeties round us out. Nothing really changes here, except for adding just a little bit of depth here at our free safety for Lathan Ransom. He can play nickel. He can play free safety. He can play strong safety. So actually we can move him over a little bit too. Jonathan Owens is there to back him up. Elijah Hicks has backed him up as well. So it just gives us a little bit of depth there. Let me know what you guys think. Hopefully this was the last one for a while. Hopefully we win tomorrow against the Niners. Hopefully we don't have any more mock drafts for a little bit, and we can start talking about the excitement of this team developing, getting on a winning streak, and heading towards the playoffs. What do you say? So let me know what you think on this one. Complete offseason, all the players in whole. And here's how we rolled it through, all the way from the offensive line, quarterback, running backs, wide receiver, tight ends, defensive ends, defensive tackles, linebackers, nickelbacks, cornerbacks, straight safeties. And that's the entire team. Let me know what you guys think. We'll see you tomorrow for the Bears game. Go Bears and bear down.